Good morning. Welcome back to my podcast, Learn Astrology with Mary. And my name's Mary English, and we're at the moment we're discussing chart shapes, because the shape of your chart is very indicative of the energies that you will possess. And so today we're going to be discussing the charts of some more volunteers, and we're going to be discussing the splay, the bowl, the cluster and the bucket in a bit more detail. So let's get straight in there, and I just wanted to check with you that you've made yourself an account, a free account at www.astro.com. It's a Swiss website based in Switzerland, and it has very, very accurate information. Now there's plenty of other websites that you can get information on, but this one will be the best one for you. And no, I'm not on a commission, but a lot of astrologers do use astro.com because it is very accurate and it's owned and run by astrologers. So rather than just being a completely commercial event, it is there to serve the astrological community. So make sure you make your account. You'll be able to make 100 charts up for free before they'll charge you. I have a storage of 1,000, which costs me, I think it's €8 a year. So it's a really, really small amount of money if you want to store more than 100. But 100, it'll take you a while to build those up. So you'll be able to keep quite a few on there on your free account before it starts to cost you money. And as I mentioned before, make sure that you go across to the free horoscopes bit, click on that, scroll down, go to extended chart selection, and on that page there where it asks you about, because we're talking a lot about chart shape, you need to make sure that you clicked the box and options that tells you that you can then make your chart into equal house chart. Now all of the people that I'm discussing today, I have already sent them their charts in the equal house system, so they, lucky people, won't have to actually go and make their charts up. But if you haven't had your chart made up by me, then just whiz over there, make sure you go to extended chart selections, you get out of that default chart shape because it'll be placidus and wonky. We want your chart to be nice and equal house, and then we can have a bit more understanding of your chart shape. So I hope you've made your account and you've made a few charts up and you've had a little whiz around the website. There's a lot of free information on. In fact, you can have your whole chart analysed for free. You can have your analysis for the next year done for free. There's about 5 or 6 different free options on there, so do make sure you use them. So we are going to discuss now. We're going to discuss the bowl, because the bowl leads on to the bucket. And my first chart example here, we have Ren, and she's a lady that lives. She's now moved to Europe, which is very nice. So she's not living in the UK anymore. She's living in the warm climes, and her chart shape is very much a bowl. She has all of her planets on one side of the circle, and it's not a very squished bowl, it's a very spread out bowl. So her planets occupy 8 segments of the chart. Normally speaking, a bowl would be 6 houses or less, but there's no other way of describing her chart other than being a bowl. She has got 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, could do the maths here. She's got 4 houses that are empty, and I wouldn't say that was any other shape other than a bowl, because all the planets are completely located on one side. There's absolutely nothing on the other side of her chart. She has, as I say, those 4 houses that are empty, and the planets that she does have that are in the extra 2 houses are very much on the edge of those houses, so we can get away by calling this a bowl. So in Ren's case, she has a majority of her planets above the horizon, which we'll discuss at another point. But if all of your planets are above the horizon, then you're very much a people person. You don't really want to go into deep psychotherapy. You want to be out there with other people in the world, socializing and being there and doing it. Yeah? Next we have Tessa. And Tessa also has a bowl, and again she's got 1, 2, 3, 4. She's got 5 empty houses. So she and unlike Wren, Tessa has quite a cluster of planets in 2 houses. So she's got 6 planets that are distributed in 2 houses, and then she's got a gap, and then she's got 2 houses occupied, and then another gap, and then another house occupied with 2 planets. So it's quite interesting in that not all the planets are all in the same place. There's a few gaps in between, but the majority of her planets are all on one side of the circle, and she has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 houses that are completely empty. So where she's got the cluster, so this would need to be discussed at another point, where she's got the cluster, that's the majority of where her energies lie. And people with bowl charts do like to be with people for a considerable amount of time, and then they must have time on their own. So where you've got those empty bits in your chart, that's your leave me alone time. So depending on which houses it is, those are the ones where you just don't want to be disturbed. You want to do your own thing. You just want everybody else just to go away and leave you. So if you have a bowl chart like these 2 ladies do, which we're discussing already, then make sure you divide your time up between activity and nothingness. So these are people probably that can manage meditation really well. And next up we got Celia. And we are discussing 2 Celias today, just to be different. This is Celia G, and again she has all her planets on one side of the circle. She has 4 empty houses, and her planets are in every house. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 houses occupied, which I believe we just discussed with our first volunteer, which was Wren, that's right. And she has 4 houses that are empty, so she doesn't need quite so much me time. There's a certain amount of me time that she needs, but her chart is pretty busy in the 12th house and the 3rd house, but we'll come more onto houses later on. But in Celia G's case, again, we have the bowl, we have all the planets on one side of the circle with 4 houses that are empty, so there's a certain amount of time need to be with other people and a certain amount of time on her own. So thank you ladies for your volunteering. We'll probably come back to your charts at some point into the future. And next up we have Teresa. Now Teresa has a bucket chart. So if you imagine the bowl is all the planets all on one side of the circle, the bucket is all the planets on one side and then one planet in opposition to it. Now this is the chart shape of J.K. Rowling, who I'm sure you've heard of. Now in Teresa's case, she's got her 3rd house is pretty chock-a-block. So the 3rd house is the house of communications, and her bowl segment of her bucket is in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's in 6 houses. So, but they're all squished to one side of those 6 houses, so it looks a bit more clustered. And her opposition planet is Saturn. So the planet that opposes your bowl is what we call a singleton planet, and that is where a focus of yours needs to be. So people with bowl charts, the bowl segment, that's where they do their thing, and then the opposition planet is the one that they need to resolve in some way because it's not part of the little family of the bowl. And I say in J.K. Rowling's case, her Saturn is in opposition to her bowl, and Saturn is the planet of responsibility. So she is a fabulous author. She's written some very good books, and we can definitely agree that in the writing of her books she has made sure that she has written in this responsible manner. I'm sure you'll agree with me on this. And in Teresa's case, she also has Saturn in opposition to her bowl, so she will feel some responsibility for wherever it is that the Saturn planet lies and the house that it's in. And in her case it's in the 7th, which is to do with relationships. It's in the sign of Gemini, which is very much the sign of duality, but located in the 7th is about relationships. So the life issue that this young lady needs to resolve will be about relationships. They need to be sorted for her in some way. And next up we have Celia, and this is Celia S. Again, she has a bucket, so she has the majority of her planets. Now in her case, hers are much more clustered. Her bowl segment of her chart, everything's in 5 houses, and her opposition again is Saturn. How interesting. We got 2 people with Saturn opposition. They're all the same as J.K. Rowling. And her Saturn's in the sign of Aries in the 8th, and the 8th is the segment of the chart to do with sex, birth, reincarnation, the other worlds, that type of thing. So maybe she needs to, or maybe I'm talking to you personally now, Celia, sorry, maybe you need to come to some resolution about issues to do with death, reincarnation, birth, that type of thing, because that's the mystical house, is the 8th house. But if you have a chart that's a bucket, always look to see where your singleton planet lies and get to a complete understanding of it, because it's there on its own. When a planet is singleton, it's like, I'm here all on my own. It's very, very lonely. That type of thing. So get some understanding of your Saturn. And next up we have Anna Jo, and again she has a bowl planet with a 1 in singleton, making her a bucket, and her bowl occupies occupies 4 houses, but it's in a segment of 5 houses, and one of those houses is empty, so she's got very much a cluster in the first house. Wow, that's a busy first house you've got there. The 9th house is pretty smackaroony with planets. Yes, your first house has got 4 and your 9th house has got 3. So your bowl part of your bucket is on the sort of top left of your chart, and your singleton planets, unlike the other 2 ladies, is your moon, and the moon is the emotional self, and your moon is in the sign of Cancer, and Cancer is very much the moon and Cancer get on, because the moon is the ruling planet to Cancer. The moon is how we feel. So the issue for you in your life is to learn about your feelings. And since you're an Aquarius and they really aren't marvellous with feelings, that's going to be a very big life lesson, that one. You need to get in touch with how you feel. Once you've done that, zoom, everything's really fluffy. But pretty much clustered your chart on the bowl side of it. So we will go on to a cluster chart. So here we have Mark, and Mark has a cluster. He has all of his planets in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 houses. Nothing in the rest of his chart. It's very, very clustered up, and I think I mentioned in the last episode the most clustered chart I'd ever seen was somebody with all their planets in 3 houses. So it's quite unique to have your planets that crammed together. You have to be born between 1979 and 1999, because your outer planets will then be near to your personal planets. So being that clustered and that focused, and say this is less than a bowl. A bowl is planets just in 6 houses, or just on one side of the chart. This is less than one side of the chart. This is sort of approaching the quarter of a chart. And in Mark's case, he has all his planets all squished together, and I don't think there's any gaps in between. No, there's 2 planets in one house, 2 planets in the next house, 2 planets in the next house again, 3 planets in your third. So quite a few people today have got the third house is rather chock-a-block, and the third house is the house of communications and short journeys, and then you've got 1 planet in your 4th house. So people with cluster charts, and I will come on to discussing them more when I get onto indigo charts. People with cluster charts very much need to focus on one thing at a time. For goodness sakes, if you've got a cluster chart, don't interrupt a person with a cluster chart. I mean, in my case, I've got a splay, which we'll be talking about next. The next lady's got a splay. Splay charts, they love to be distracted, but somebody with a cluster chart, don't interrupt them when they're doing something. You'll just knock them off, because they need to do one thing at a time, do it well, and then do the next thing. And they can tell you, oh look, I'll be free in X amount of minutes, and let me do what I'm doing. But they can't butterfly and splatter themselves around the place. So Mark, you've got a lovely, lovely cluster chart there. Stay focused on the things that you want to focus on, then life's fluffy. And do tell other people not to interrupt you. So lastly, we're going to discuss this young lady's chart here. This is Jessica. Jess is what she likes to be called, and she has a splay chart. And when your chart's splayed, all your planets all the way around the circle in a very uneven way. So there's sort of little bits of cluster here, little bit of cluster there. In her case, in Jess's case, you've only got 4 empty houses, but all your planets are all in the other houses, and so it's as if somebody's just chucked the planets into the circle, so they're all irregular all over the place, and it's exactly the same chart shape as I have. And so you need to divide your time between zillions of different projects, and if somebody interrupts you, that's fine. You probably need to be interrupted at that moment in time. So if you have a splay chart, your planets are around the circle in an uneven shape. There's no evenness about it. There might be a cluster here, cluster there, whatever, but the planets are all the way around the circle. You feel much better doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that, having your finger in as many pies as possible, keeping yourself go, and where you have your empty houses, which in your case are 4, 6, 7 and 10. So 4 is the home, 6 is health, 7 is relationships, and 11 is friendships. That's where you need to have your space, not to have yourself chock-a-block in those bits. So this today we've been talking about splays, bowls, clusters and buckets, and thank you very much for listening today, and we'll be back talking again next Monday. And as I say, my name's Mary English. You can find more details about what I get up to on my website, www.maryenglish.com, and I'm the author of 15 plus books. There's a link to my Amazon book page on my podcast and also on my website, and I have written a book for each sign of the zodiac, so if you need to learn about your own sign and also how to make a chart, there's lots and lots of information in there for you. So thanks very much for listening today. See you soon.